Good afternoon, everyone, and I'm Rob McIntosh. Good to be with you. I'm from 8 Inc. I'm the executive principal. 8 Inc. is the global design firm I've been working with for this past several years, and it's good to be able to speak to you today on fashion and technology. What I'd like to really introduce you to 8 Inc. 8 Inc. is really known for, back in 1997, for working with Steve Jobs and creating the Apple Store concept with him through our founders, Wilhelm Ohl and Tim Kobe. And since then, we have been able to work across the world on many different industries and many different projects, really influencing experience and the human experience. So we like to call ourselves experience architects, and that's where we choreograph the experience of a customer or a brand from end to end. That kind of work works in several realms. Human and people needs are at the center, and around that are the human behaviors, the services, the products, the experiences that we generate and build collectively as one full experience. So that's led us to some very interesting programs and some advanced programs as it affects fashion and technology today. We are a studio of 11 studios across the world, and we enjoy being able to work in many markets and with many cultures. And today I'm going to bring you into a discussion about in the future. From our standpoint, 8 Inc. really is working at the collision between digital and physical, and how experience between those two realms is created these days, and how it will affect what a fashion brand needs to look at in the future, and actually right now, how it will affect how a fashion brand will need to plan its digital transformation for younger generations today. So I'd like to bring you into two really territories that I'd like to talk about. And one of them is called belonging. Today, we know that many brands in the world have traditional loyalty programs. They create a number of different types of incentives for you to stay and retain within that brand. But given the digital evolution, which is so rapid and so at scale today, loyalty has changed, and the sun is really setting on loyalty. And I'd like to go and talk to you about how the membership of the future, or the belonging to a brand of the future, is going to change, and is changing before us right now. So what that really means is that we were, in past decades, really dealing in what you would call an omni-channel way of engaging a customer, where you would have you started from traditional brick and mortar, then to e-commerce, and then to mobile. Well, the youngest generations now only started in mobile, and that's all they know, and that's all they see, and that's all they transact. So 8 Inc. has really coined the term mono-channel, which really kind of frames this new reality of how brands need to connect with digital natives today. So that means that a brand should be considered in all forums a live broadcast every day, 24/7. It's constantly, the frequency of its messages, the frequency of how it interacts with its customers needs to be that speedy. And the physical space, the retail space, the physical environment has now become a live broadcast itself. So in total, we feel that a brand really needs to be able to have its own feed. And today I'll be talking about what the feed of the brand needs to be now and in the future. So at the heart of that feed is membership. And membership is a subject that I think we've been working on now for many years with our clients to evolve them out of the traditional retention of their customers, the traditional communication of their customers, and into a far more richer database platform that they can bring their customers in. It's not such a platform, so to speak, but it's a new brand world. And that brand world can offer a number of different things and a number of different new access to customers that they didn't have before, to audiences that they didn't have before, offerings that they didn't have before. One example that we benchmark quite often at 8 Inc. is our friends at Nike. If you look at the evolution of the Nike Plus platforms from a decade ago, where it started out as a chip in the shoe and then reported data on your performance or your run on your app, that has advanced to a huge membership model that incorporates a number of different ways to connect to Nike, to interact with Nike. And to co-create with Nike now, even so. So where if as a Nike Plus member, you can enter into Nike's innovation stores. You have special access to co-create in a co-creation spaces, products, apparel, and personalization. You have a specific ability to have certain services in terms of transacting, click and collect, and all of these things because you are part of this new digital membership. And that digital membership is now recognizing you in Nike's physical environments, so that the digital expression in the physical space of Nike gives a two-way dialogue in its space with you. In addition, they also now are moving rapidly into being a far deeper and richer wellness and content company. This is quite an exciting vertical for them now that they become really deep in the wellness aspects of how they can make you a better athlete within their brand. What you're seeing here is an unfolding of a membership model that we find is a really good example of how to keep customers engaged and how to offer them exclusivity. The younger generations are going to want it through their device. They're going to want to feel like they're rewarded. They're going to want to feel like they have special access to your brand. And fashion needs to take on this realm. Fashion needs to create this kind of digital world. Years back, an agency I worked for created a concept for Nike called Your Year with Nike. It took the first top 100,000 performers on the Nike Plus platform and created a set of individual movies. 100,000 individual custom movies were sent to 100,000 top members on the Nike platform. And what was really fascinating about that was that it was custom to them. All of their goals, everything that they achieved in that year was a celebration movie that was sent to them as a personal reward. This is really interesting in terms of how people want to share their data with an organization. This is really elevating it to a level where this is a celebratory exchange, a two-way dialogue between a brand and how customers react with that brand. So this example of how Nike has constructed its platform, now 100 million members strong around the world, is a benchmark that we think fashion should be looking at. The other thing that's happening, and a lot of the work that we're doing right now with our clients, is really helping them move into much more of a subscription world. We are seeing, and we are constructing with some global brands right now, an ability to not just help them communicate better, create better experiences, but actually how to create different verticals of service and engagement in the brand. Sort of a bundling of new types of access into a brand, such as Nike did. Nike's becoming an educator. They're becoming a wellness supporter. So what does it mean for fashion? Can a fashion brand be a travel brand? Can they be an education brand? Can they be a co-creation brand? Or can they package all of those things into a new membership world that you can have access to, depending on how you engage with that brand? This is the fundamental shift of how a digital platform, the strength of data, the strength of the digital offerings can now be actually brought to a much larger service capability within a brand, a really wonderful place to try to explore new things and to engage with others. So a very large trend that we're actively engaged in right now. And so that brings you back to Nike's sort of construct of services, real-time data, the ability to be able to engage you directly and be able to offer you exclusivity and services that others don't get if they're not part of the membership. And that we feel is the future membership model. And we feel that fashion really needs to move rapidly in that direction to create retention, to create a far deeper conversation with its followers, but also maybe invent new worlds within the brand that haven't been created before. That is one space that we're looking at, and an exciting one. The second space that we get privileged to be asked to work on often is what's the future of presence? And by presence, I mean the physical environment. We get asked often to report on or to engage or do projects on what is the future of an automotive dealership today, or what's the future of a physical bank, or a boutique, or flagship, or a store. This is something that we are looking at very heavily because the very nature of presence, the very nature of the physicality of a brand has changed in need and changed in its importance. And so what we're doing right now, in a very exciting new partnership, is 8 Inc. is now partnered with Cisco. You know, Cisco is a large global technology innovation group, and we have been able to really advance this notion of what presence means in the retail space or the physical environment that is part of a brand. One of the things we're looking at is the new journey through that physical space. And there's three real interesting areas that we're zeroing in on. And one of them is really taking that physical environment and turning it into what we call brand theater, and really being able to show, broadcast, and play large capability of storytelling and narratives all over the space, and changing that space into from a static visual merchandising environment, if it's a retail or fashion brand, to a much more interactive canvas, if you will, that can do a number of things with the technology we're working on. The second space, we're really trying to really get much more into a new environment, is product discovery and how you actually deal with and engage with a product in a space. We're looking at the fact that we can get rid of cash wraps and POS and cash and paying and everything that is interacted. Your investigation of that product is all through a mobile interaction. And the mobile connectivity to you shopping in an environment is the space we're closing in on. And that's another area that we're advancing and building new solutions for next year. The third one, and a really interesting one, certainly our friends at Apple, who we work with, have really mastered this, is the live space, turning the space into what we call a live broadcast, a space that can educate, a space that can entertain, a space that is essentially a streaming network, and getting the physical environment to be now part of the digital feed of a brand. And moving these three things together, we've now started to build Store of the Future programs, environments of the future programs that we're busy building with right now. So what is that doing? Well, what it's changing is the physical environment is changing into a much richer two-way dialogue. If you're a member of that brand, you're immediately recognized in that space, and you can transact or investigate or communicate with that brand in different ways. And the ability and the engagement model, the interaction model, the actual reason for that physical space is vastly different now and far more engaging. So that sets up a real two-way dialogue between you and the brand. The other really exciting part with the partners that we're working on right now is really making the interaction and the discovery of products in a space simultaneous, so that literally I can see that product through a device and I can engage with that product however I want to, real time. We can also, if we know you, speak to you through that interaction in a number of different ways in real time and be able to serve you in a number of different ways. And so we are very close to a simultaneous way of shopping, of engaging product and services within environments. Lastly, live theater, as I mentioned, this is something that we feel is transformative for physical flagships and spaces out there, where the communications and the programming of a space quarter on quarter, year on year, is really a new program of event, of live broadcast, of influencer-led events, and all of these types of things that are now being programmed into the space to be able to make that space, as I said, much more of a live broadcast. So what we're really thinking of now, with all that learning that we're doing and taking those three areas and moving them together, is we've really come up with some design principles that we feel very strongly about. Now, a lot of the store of the future kinds of discussions we've been in over the years have been really, in our opinion, tech for tech's sake, magic mirrors and AR and all those things. But the problem with that is that they weren't really thought through in terms of the human need or the human use case. So one of the first things is we're going to create technology in an environment with true use cases. It's very important. If that use case isn't true, if people aren't really going to need that, if it really isn't going to solve a human need, we don't use that technology, or we don't take that problem on. We're only looking for things that make a seamless experience. We're only looking for things that elevate our guest or our customer. So the use case must be true. The second one is a large discussion we have with many of our clients, especially in fashion, where they never felt like they needed to, they never realized that they had to be a content company too. They're a fashion company, season on season, but they are also a content company. They are also a live broadcast. And so what we're doing in addition to the technology is changing the very nature of how content is created within the organization, so it can reach all of its channels in a very interconnected way. So it can speak to its membership in a very personalized way. And content becomes a new invention, in our opinion, for many brands, especially in fashion. And lastly, it's a space, another principle that we are very close to, which is constantly customizing. A physical environment can actually change its very nature, its attitude, its need, its format. And we think that can happen quite often. Stores of the future really aren't necessarily fixed and static these days. We feel they're fluid, they're mobile, and they're transformative. So the very planning of an environment has to change in sync with its technology, in sync with its customer needs, in sync with its ability to communicate. So that gets us to two realms of belonging and presence that are very, very strong projects and activity that we have at 8 Inc. here globally. I'd like to thank the organizers very much for inviting us to talk with you today. Thank you, and have a safe day. Thank you.